So when we were all of a sudden forced to shut down and really think about how do we continue to engage our fans and our visitors and the family and friends, and how do we keep them connected to this place, we looked at social media as being the perfect place to do that. So we spent a lot of time creating pre-taped videos, loading those onto Facebook, putting them up on our website, and making them available for, again, you know, our fans, the people who couldn't get out. So we were trying to keep them engaged as much as possible. At the same time, we saw our school programs shutting down. And so what we did is we took a lot of the same resources that we were creating virtually for Facebook and for our social media sites, and we created videos on how to do crafts. We did virtual flyovers for trails and put these together in a resource package for parents and teachers who all of a sudden found themselves at home. And as we're doing this, as I said, we were moving pretty quickly, and there were a lot of lessons that were learned because of this, and where we are today is very different. So we've advanced our efforts into creating these for school groups and for teachers, more of a virtual field trip that's a whole package. So we're looking at creating really dynamic multi-day lessons and virtual field opportunities with visits with a live naturalist and things like that. Again, really trying to engage people and bring them into the site. And that would be our school programming. In regards to what we're doing now with our social media, we've learned a great deal. We learned that hashtags don't work well with Facebook. We've also learned that putting together these packaged videos are nice, but people love personal engagement, and that's what we've worked towards. So we're now doing these week-long campaigns on a monthly basis. They're very targeted, they connect to national campaigns, and we have a lot more of live opportunities so that we offer an opportunity for chatting to take place. So putting all of this together, and again, all these lessons learned, we began to think about how do we roll out our Weaving Yesterdays. So how do we create as dynamic an experience for our visitors and for folks, and really celebrate this California Humanities grant. So what we've done is we've created a multiple month-long campaign. So the first Saturday of every month since July, we've had a Weaving Yesterdays moment at the reserve, where we have a person in the field telling one of the stories that'll ultimately be part of that exhibit. And you can see on this slide the different ways we've engaged folks to keep them interested. So on the left hand of your screen, we see the Facebook Live series. That was our announcement piece that we have up on Facebook. The October 3rd, October 3rd, we put those out the week before of like, hey, this is what's coming up. And then you can see where we've put some, again, some teasers up during the week to, again, further keep folks interested and energized and excited and knowing that this is coming. All right, so this is going to continue right through till November, at which point we will culminate with our live event. So the live event's going to look very different. As I mentioned, we'd hoped to do it in person, but again, taking these lessons, we will be creating a virtual Zoom event that will take place in November. We'll have a panel of speakers, and by using Zoom, we'll be able to take reservations. Folks will be able to ask and do a Q&A after the speakers, but we're also going to film it at the same time on Facebook so that we can expand our audience and allow folks to just sit in on the speaker series and not necessarily have the opportunity to chat. At the end of the panel and the speakers, we're actually then going to pivot everyone into our visitor center, and the whole thing will be on Facebook. It'll be a Facebook Live event, and at that point we'll do a ribbon cutting. We're hoping to invite the Amamutsun tribal band to come and be part of the ceremony, and we see it just as a really wonderful opportunity to actually reach far more people than we would have if we had done this in live or in person with just our friends and family. And so we're very excited to be celebrating this weaving of culture and ecology and and the history of this really beautiful place, and very grateful to California Humanities for funding this project. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Virginia.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. And next, Akemi Chan Imai from Oakland Asian Cultural Center.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and share my presentation. Is it on full screen for everyone? Wonderful. I'm seeing an okay. So I will proceed. Again, my name is Akemi Chanimai. I manage the programs over at Oakland Asian Cultural Center. We are an arts and cultural nonprofit. We present a wide variety of programs, including workshops, weekly classes, panel discussions, exhibitions, anything and everything that could potentially fit in our facility that's located in the heart of Oakland Chinatown. We also serve as a rental venue, which brings in a significant amount of earned income that supports our operations and programs. This is a poster of the projects that we received funding from with the Humanities for All project grant. It's a 2-year partnership with Eastwind Books to present a literary panel discussion series called Community Voices to Empower Change. We seek to highlight global issues, very big ones like climate change and gentrification, and try to connect it in terms of their impact on our local communities. So we had planned out, as you can see, a 3-hour program for this first one in April, and we were going to supplement these talks with interactive workshops as an engagement piece for our attendees. And this is just a very simple breakdown how our programs and plans really shifted dramatically earlier this year. Because OACC was only familiar with presenting in-person programs, and we were immediately compromised when we had the shelter in place go into effect for the Bay Area in mid-March. Added to that, we're a very small staff. We don't have a dedicated communications or technology specialist in our staff roster, so we relied a lot on our personal experience and just simply trying things out as we went along. Ultimately, because our partners, Eastwind Books, was very nimble, and also California Humanities staff, I really want to credit their speedy pivoting to help us figure out the logistics to make the April 19th event happen. So that was really a team effort that I'm really grateful to everyone involved. In terms of this is some of our upcoming events, but I wanted to talk a little bit about our audience. Our audience composition, it largely depends on the program content, but generally we've been able to attract attendees local to East Bay, a few commuting from further out, but still a general NorCal Bay Area region. And the majority of our audience is very issues driven. So depending on the topic, the partners that we collaborate with, and we get a really diverse mix and demographic range. With the virtual events, we've been able to really expand our audience engagement beyond the local region. I think Virginia also mentioned that in her presentation. We've been able to have attendees and also involve presenters from the East Coast. Some people were participating from abroad, so it really just expands our horizons in terms of who we can attract. And one of the things with virtual events, we were really also trying to increase and strengthen our presence on social media. We didn't add any new accounts. We already had most everything that's on this slide, but they just were not utilized well. So we really just doubled down and increased posting frequency and just really tried to leverage that. And it seems to be working very well. For the actual hosting of the logistics part of our virtual events, we usually host them on Zoom. And then we also, in tandem to that, stream it to YouTube Live. So that there's an easy, if someone just couldn't locate the Zoom meeting link, they could just find our channel and find the live session. Sometimes if an event is entirely pre-recorded, we can just use OBS Studio to stream it to YouTube Live. So that's a little bit in the weeds, but we're trying different things and it seems to be working out nicely. So I wanted to close with some general learnings. 3 points is to really keep it simple, I've learned that the technology really shouldn't distract from the program content, and it really should be within your staff and your audience's comfort level. So, you know, it may be, you might feel the pressure. I know I definitely felt the pressure, like, all these formats are starting to look the same, like, should we use more breakout rooms? Should we try this? But ultimately, you know, if they become a source of frustration for your audience, then that kind of takes away from the impact of our programs. So I like to keep it simple. Virtual events, I also realize, can run a lot shorter than on-site programs. So that climate change event, if you remember that banner earlier, was 3 hours. We, when it went virtual, it was only 1.5 hours. And even that was still maybe on the longer end of what I would be comfortable to host. Second point is definitely have a tech buddy. Don't do this alone. I usually partner up with my program assistant, Rachel. She's been amazing. And I also usually ask a program partner or collaborator if there needs to be a moderator to cover that role, so that I don't have to be focused on front-facing info and then the back tech aspects. So, and again, splitting up the roles about who is controlling what's on screen, and then the other person can really focus on like the chat box and really making sure that that interaction is really lively. And another useful thing for us that I've realized is to agree upon some kind of back-end communications, whether it's like Slack or text messaging or some other way, so that the staff can communicate privately if something is going wrong. And then you can really smoothly take care of that, and your audience doesn't even know if there was an issue. And then my last point is you can prepare as much as possible. You can see I'm sharing you. It's real. This is exactly how I'm presenting today at my table and my script. I usually try to prepare a script. I've been able to make it a little less, you know, word by word like this. But I have to recognize, you know, there's a certain element that you can't anticipate what you don't know. And I'm not a tech expert. I'm not an audiovisual expert. So there will be aspects of the technology that are not apparent until you actually start the event. So just be kind when it does happen. And I think audiences are also very forgiving when you're having a little difficulty. That's what I wanted to leave you all with. And again, thank you so much to California Humanities for inviting me.
Thank you, Ekemi. That was wonderful. And our next presenter is Patrick Coleman from SDFutures.
All right, thanks, Bidhan. Let me just get this running here. All right. So yeah, thank you again. I'm really honored and happy to be here on behalf of the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination. So the Clarke Center is a center at UC San Diego, and our mission is to foster the study of imagination using the latest tools in neuroscience, cognitive science, and cultural studies, as well as a special interest inspired by our namesake, Sir Arthur C. Clarke, most famously known for writing 2001: Space Odyssey, in how we individually and collectively imagine the future. And one of those ways that we have as individuals and as cultures is through science fiction and fantasy writing. And so we have helped run the Clarion Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Workshop for years. And Clarion is the oldest and one of the most well-regarded kind of incubators for the next generation of speculative writers, adult writers. And thanks to the support of California Humanities, we were intending this year to pilot a teen writing workshop program. And of course, because of COVID, everything shifted to online. But just so you know, originally our intent was to organize these workshops and have them take place kind of far afield throughout San Diego County, often in public libraries. And I see one of our friends from the public library system is here today. These kinds of programs and having these workshops led by writers, professional writers, who reflect some aspects of the young people's experiences and communities that they may not have a chance to work with as often. But Instead, we switched to an all online program. So we quickly built a dedicated website and converted all of our workshops into standalone Zoom classes that each took place over 4 or 5 weeks, sort of staggered over about 9 weeks in the summer. And so we ended up with 6 different classes, and just I can't express my gratitude enough to the instructors. Just an amazing group of instructors: Lillian Rivera, Rebecca Rowanhorse, Min Lei, Kali Wallace, Leah Thomas, and then a special class that was actually on how to use the tools of world. Think about the future of your own life and your community and the impact you want to have on the world, run by 2 recent UC San Diego grads, Janelle Horcasitas and Olivia Quintanilla. And so these classes took a number of different forms. Some of them, like Lillian's, was a workshop or a series of classes about how to write young adult science fiction and fantasy. Min Lei taught a class about how to write your superhero story. So taking those tropes of superhero stories and thinking about getting young people thinking about their experiences, their communities, and aspects of them that they don't often see reflected in those kinds of stories. And so kind of how to use the tropes of the genre to insert themselves in their lives into imaginative storytelling, as well as deep dives into character and workshops. So Rebecca and Kali led workshops where the young people submitted stories, which was really exciting to see. Now, the SD and SD Futures originally stood for San Diego because we were focusing on San Diego County, but we sort of rebranded it as student-driven since we were opening it up to anyone because we were online, which turned out to be just a really fantastic boon to the whole project. We had about 80 students participate, a good number from San Diego and from California, but also teenagers from around the United States and around the world. We had students calling in from England, from New Zealand, from Colombia, and one really amazing, intrepid young woman waking up at 6 in the morning to Zoom in from Hong Kong to participate. And to see all of these students interacting with each other and with the instructors was just really touching. Another story that I was just really blown away by was so Rebecca Rowanhorse is Dene Navajo, and we had a young Dene writer able to join her workshop, and who was just very excited to work with Rebecca for that reason. So stuff that would have been impossible if we were doing this only in person. Just in terms of the kind of tools that we relied on, we used Eventbrite to manage registration and to manage disseminating the Zoom links, which is a good system for preventing Zoom bombing and controlling who has access to the actual Zoom login information. And because these were workshops, we were often sending material to the students in between sessions. And so using Eventbrite's free interface for communicating with each group of registrants was really handy too. And then otherwise we were kind of building on our existing social media platforms, our existing constant contact email database, and other tools to communicate both the opportunity and then with the participants. We did make it a free event, which I'm really glad that we did that. But one of the things, especially online, because it was free, we saw about a 40% attrition rate between the number of people who registered versus who showed up to the classes. The young people who did show up were very enthusiastic and stuck through 4 or 5 week classes. Some of them took 2 or 3 of the classes, which was really, really beautiful to see. But I think we were a little bit under capacity of what we could have handled because our registrations had filled up, but we had so many people not actually take advantage of the classes. And so, I guess just in closing, I think there were challenges that we had to deal with. There was a lot of kind of late night, quick adaptation that we had to do, but the fact that for about 9 weeks over the summer, 80 writers from around the world got to work with professional writers and came away, inspired and engaged after they had just done a spring virtual high school that they were super sick of, was just really, really beautiful and made us happy to see. And we're just, super grateful to California Humanities for allowing us to do it.
Well, thanks so much, Patrick. That's wonderful. And our next presenter is Katie Porter from Inlandia Institute. Katie.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. And I am very happy that we have been able to press forward with our programs funded by California Humanities. Let me go ahead and start. So Inlandia Institute is a 13-year-old literary and cultural arts nonprofit based in Riverside with an outreach office in San Bernardino, but we serve all of inland Southern California. So that also includes parts of LA County. And we have 5 core programs. We work with young people. We work with adults. So doing writing workshops and programs in public and in the schools. We publish books, and we have a literary laureate who's appointed every 2 years. So that's like akin to the state poet laureate or regional poets laureate, but it's not genre specific. So it's open to all kinds of writers. And this project is one that originated from our laureate program. The laureate is able to try to curate some programs and over their tenure, which is 2 years. And this was one of the programs that she wanted to see come to fruition. It is called One Community, Many Voices. And it is a community read, a series of book discussions and writing workshops, both for youth and for young adults, that center the voices of queer writers of color. So our literary laureate is Rachel Cruz. She is the 2018-2020 laureate. She's also an American Book Award winner, and she won the Hillary Gravendike Prize, which is a poetry book competition that Inlandia offers. And this project is featuring the work of 2 local authors who are queer writers of color. We have Alex Espinoza, who is the Tomas Rivera Endowed Chair in Creative Writing at the University of California, Riverside. And his book that we'll be featuring in the spring, in March, is a novel called Stillwater Saints. And our current community read, which just launched today, so if you're interested in getting a copy, send me a message and I would be happy to mail one to you so you can participate. It's free for everyone to participate. That is with Joshua Jennifer Espinoza, who is a trans writer and poet of color, who's also from this region. And we're featuring her poetry collection, There Should Be Flowers. And we have a humanities advisor who is assisting with developing all of the discussion questions and with the program implementation of the program. And that's Richard T. Rodriguez, or Ricky Rodriguez of UCR. And the first leg of this program was a youth writing workshop. And originally it was intended to be held in person, but we had to make, of course, last minute changes. In March, when we were beginning the planning for this summer workshop, we really didn't know what was going to happen. So at first we just put off making a decision, but ultimately we decided we're going to move it all online. And that was really the best decision. I can echo what other people have said about these Zoom events. They do allow for more participation from further reaches. So we had kids who weren't just from the region participating, all over California, one from New York. With this workshop, it actually provided some professional development for college age students who want to work in the creative writing field. So they learned how to teach creative writing. And we also, because of everything that was going on in the community, we decided to incorporate some more talk in a book called This Book is Anti-Racist. And each kid received a free copy of that book. And that was part of the discussion and part of the conversation in these workshops. And as I just mentioned, today is our official October 1 kickoff for the second part of this program, which is the community read. And we are going to be holding an event on Zoom on October 23rd, featuring both of the authors and both of the project personnel, as well as myself. And we invite anybody who would like to join us to please do. The book is available all across the region. We were faced with, how do we get this book into the hands of people during this period where we are all sheltering at home? Venues are closed, bookstores were closed, we're all doing contactless delivery. But I reached out to all of our local libraries who began offering these library to-go programs and curbside pickup. And we have been able to piggyback on what they're doing, and people can call the library and make an appointment to come in and pick up their free copy. And these are some of the participating libraries: Riverside County Library System, San Bernardino, Riverside City Library, and San Bernardino County Library. The program is designed for the general public, but the idea is that we are trying to incorporate a dialogue around these issues of race and identity, so that we can foster that conversation within the community about different viewpoints. And we are really looking forward to seeing what the discussions look like. There are going to be 3 book discussions in November, on November 1, November 8, and November 15. Shifting all of our programs to online was a challenge, but it really has opened us up to a lot of benefits. And we have been using Zoom almost exclusively, but we also, we will use the webinar format, which I found is actually a little bit better for the platform is a little bit better for events, because you can auto set everyone's mic to mute and no video on, so that you have fewer opportunities for disruption. And also it gives you the extra tools where you can run a report after, and you can see who registered for your event versus who attended. And you can get a better sense of actual attendance. It's also been great because you can live stream straight from the webinar, and we will live stream it at the same time to our Facebook page. And then after the fact, we will put it on our YouTube channel. So we've got 3 opportunities for engagement, one being, the actual Zoom event, and the other, of course, social media. And then later anybody can go watch it at any time. But prior to the pandemic, our YouTube channel was a ghost town. It was pretty empty. We hadn't used it in a few years, but I've revitalized that, and with the help of staff who are quick thinking and a little more techie than I am, we have been able to make this transition. As far as how we reach our audience, I would say we too have leaned very heavily on social media, and we also have our e-newsletter that goes out to specific core groups who are interested in different subject areas, so that we're not giving everybody everything all the time. And we're also making our events a little bit shorter in recognition of the fact that a lot of folks have some Zoom fatigue after teaching all day, or helping their kids all day. So I'd say that's about it for us right now, but I'm excited to hear about everybody's programs and open to any questions you might have during the Q&A.
Thank you, Katie. That was wonderful. And next we have our two presenters, Sam Honett and Chris Hoff from World According to Sound. So Sam and Chris.
Hello. My esteemed colleague Chris is going to show you a little picture to start us off. We make a radio show and podcast. It's all about sound. And we do a live show where we set up these speakers, which you can see in the photo, which are surrounding Chris. And Chris, why don't you explain kind of how the sound works normally?
Yeah, so in the pre-pandemic times, we would make this really immersive show where we had 8 speakers in a ring and about 100 people would come and sit in the middle there, and we'd pass out eye masks and we would play this sound, this like really kind of interesting and like, sound that you've never heard before. We'd play for like 70 minutes and it would go all around the room. And like you were blind the whole time and you're just sort of sitting there just like awash in this sound. And like it was this, very communal listening experience.
Now, getting people to commit to sitting in the dark with 100 strangers with an eye mask on in non-pandemic times is a little bit of a stretch, but with the killer virus, obviously that was not going to work. Here's another photo.
Those are the people sitting in the dark. All of them dutifully with their eye masks on.
Exactly.
We were very proud of that.
Members.
Yes.
So we used to travel with the show, Chris, myself, and a van, and all of our speakers. And we got a grant from California Humanities to do a project about the blind and visually impaired. And so the project was a radio series and podcast all about the experience of the blind and visually impaired. And we constructed a show that was going to use those sounds on our speaker array. And we had a tour all planned. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. So Chris and I started thinking, how can we take the show that we have and still get it to people? And what we decided to do was to take the 8 channels of sound and mix them down to headphones and spatialize them. Spatialize the audio so that on headphones, it would sound like things are all around you. This was our little listening card that we mailed to people. We wanted people to still have that intentional listening experience. Part of the problem with a lot of online events is people are just, they've been on Zoom all day at work or with their kids at school, and then they're looking at a performance on Zoom. We wanted to recreate what it's like to be at the show. So we mailed them an eye mask and we mailed them this listening card. Chris,
and it was complete with instructions on how to listen with pleasure.
Maybe read one for
our first one is it's paramount to find a comfortable place to sit in. You don't want to be in a stiff chair. So we had a thing about that. I prefer the sofa. Sam is more of an armchair kind of a guy. But the idea was, again, by getting this thing in the mail, this physical thing in the mail, we thought this would make it oh yeah, I'm doing this thing, next Thursday night. And so that was the idea. And I think it kind of it worked for you get, if 120 people actually would pay for a ticket and, pretty much 90% would come. Maybe, it was a very high retention rate.
Right. Which I think part of that was,
yeah, go ahead.
Part of that was charging, making people pay for audio, which no one wants to pay for any streaming anything. But suddenly it's if we made people pay, they were oh, this is special. I should actually, pay attention and enjoy myself and, make a night out of it. So yeah, high retention rate. We charged $15 a ticket, which probably wasn't quite enough given that Chris and I had to stuff and mail 400 envelopes.
Yeah.
But, we got through it. And we are now going to let you experience a short clip of the show so you hear kind of what it's like. So if you have headphones, you should plug them in and put them on.
Yeah. If you don't, it's also okay. But again, the stuff is really built for this binaural experience. And it's just 2 minutes long.
Chris, you're saying it's okay. You never yield on quality.
Well, I mean,
everyone should put their headphones on.
If there's 300 people,
well,
yes, but the last one? Yeah. No, just listen. We don't have. Oh,
you must use
headphones.
Right there.
The show does not work on speakers, which is true. But
so hopefully you all have it on. We're going to play you now, and also for the full effect, you should close your eyes.
Yeah.
Everybody, close your eyes. This is not going to last long. Don't worry. And this is part of the 90-minute show that we did a few months ago. Chris is going to take it away.
Both Sam and I, our desks at home are kind of a disaster. Sam, for one's got papers and all these just single envelopes for some reason just everywhere. I've got pens and look, I got scissors and staplers. I don't even know why, just coming out every which way. Both of us are suffering from all this clutter. Leah Reed, on the other hand, she took a bunch of stuff like this and created a piece of music out of it. It's called Sketch.
Here she is drawing with a pencil. A marker. Drawing on wood.
Writing a capital A.
P.
L.
Crossing 3 T's.
Dotting some I's.
Spelling plum.
Carpet.
And steak.
Okay.
So a quick couple just logistics that we didn't explain. We streamed on Twitch because it's robust and the audio is stereo. We still take us on Eventbrite. Not the greatest, but it worked. And yeah, maybe Chris, you can explain sort of lastly where we're going with this.
Well, yeah, I mean, we thought we had quite a bit of success with this. We got, for the first show we did, we got about 400 people just by partnering with the Gray Area here in San Francisco. They're a local arts organization. So just based on that, we thought people are like maybe in the mood to really be listening in this sort of deliberate way. So we're actually going to launch in 2 months. We're going to launch a whole listening series with other people's work, working with other artists, sound artists, some musicians, in the same format, but it's going to be very different kinds of sound. But it's the same idea where we'll mail eye masks, we'll do kind of the whole same thing. It'll be every week for 10 weeks, basically. There'll be a night of listening that you can just know will be on your calendar.
And then, yeah, last thing, just basically we were trying to figure out to make an experience that was not like some reduced version of a normal experience, but actually a better experience. And the thing about headphones, I mean, that's why it's very important that everything is mixed for stereo. So when you were listening, things were like moving all around you. And so we're trying to, again, make something that's not like a degraded version of like watching a musician on a screen through Zoom. And so all 10 shows that we're going to do starting in November, they're all going to have different artists, all different kinds of audio.
Maddie, stay here.
The whole idea is that it's going to be very spatialized. So.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys. That was wonderful. Closing my eyes and listening to that, I forgot where I was for a minute. So
yeah,
actually,
that's kind of the point. Excellent.
But we're here, and we're moving on to the Q&A section with our panelists. So the first question, actually, I was thinking of your project as well as Virginia's projects, both Elkhorn Slough Reserve and the World According to Sound strike me as very kind of sensory experiences. And I'm wondering how you kind of, when you go virtually, how you how you can bring these considerations into your program in a virtual format.
Virginia, would you like to go first, or?
I'm glad to. Thank you, Sam. So two different worlds, you know, from very high tech to really the outdoor rugged world, which is what I'm dealing with. So for example, with our California Humanities grant, it is what we're trying to do is take people into the ecology part of the story that we're telling through this exhibit. And again, as I mentioned, we're doing these live experiences on a monthly basis right now. So we want to be out at the historical dairy barn, right? So we want to share that historical story along with being outdoors, which is what we're all about. So you're hearing the wind blowing, you're hearing the birds chirp, there's a train that's going by. There's a lot of the elements that we're having to really navigate. So my recommendations, I guess, would be that what we do is we've mapped our Wi-Fi sites. So when we know we're going to go out and do a particular episode each month, we go in advance and make sure we've got Wi-Fi that we can actually go live at that location. We have 2 people, it's critical. We preset all of our, the realia, whatever sort of pieces we're going to need during that. So it's all ready to go. And again, 2 people there. So one person can field the chat, because we get people that are super engaged and have lots of these questions. And so that's kind of what we have to think about, though, is that we really are outdoors. And so oftentimes we're surprised by what might fly by or interact with, but it makes it more real. And I think that's important.
For us, kind of similarly, like, we're really trying to create a kind of deliberate and controlled space. I mean, we've done the show like 6 or 7 times, but the first time Chris and I did it, we were like having a heart attack. You know, is Twitch gonna go down? Is Chris's crappy Comcast internet not gonna make the cut?
There's a lot of variables with this stuff.
So we were, you know, so we streamed it on Twitch, which actually is very robust because gamers, there's, you know, get millions of people watching them play dumb games. So they're robust. And we had a backup. We put a file temporarily on SoundCloud. So for people like my parents who have terrible internet, they could just go there and they wouldn't have to stream it live. But then, yeah, as Chris and I were saying, sort of creating an environment with the eye masks. Yeah, Chris, what else about sort of making it feel real?
I mean, besides stuff we already said, I'm not sure. I think the mailing was big. But yeah, it's like, what else can you do if somebody's in their home besides like try your best to direct them in like a way that you think that they should consume your content. Like you can't control anything in these virtual events, you know? So
again, the cheeky listening card instructions, it was like, you know, we're really trying to impress upon people to do it. And if you don't, as you were saying, Bidhan, if you don't close your eyes, and if you are like looking at your computer or your phone and listening on crappy speakers, you're not going to get it. So yeah, the biggest thing for us was really trying to make people realize that they should, you know, do what we say.
The first time, exactly. I feel guilty now. The first time we did it, I did have headphones on, by the way. So it's just now.
So you know, it's okay.
You're shaming me.
There's no shame here. We apologize.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question, bringing Patrick in from SDFutures. One of the things, you know, that as you can tell from Zoom and things like this, is the issue of how you make things interactive and how you bring participation into your programming. So I'm wondering how you sort of were able to do that, Patrick.
Yeah, it's a good question. And, you know, for us, because these were relatively small classes, you know, 20 to 40 students, and the instructors were just the class instructors, you kind of just have to adapt those ice-breaking, kind of breaking down inhibitions tools that you would use in the classroom and be a little bit more overt and deliberate with them on Zoom. And so, you know, I'd say each session, the first 5 to 10 minutes, you know, it would be about the topic that we were engaging with, but, you know, really just trying to get everyone talking and sharing and comfortable sharing and connecting over their love of this particular anime or, you know, whatever it was, and trying to kind of build those social social bonds really early. I mean, I will say working with young people, they're infinitely more used to and better at all of this stuff than us. So, so across the board, I mean, they were like right there and, you know, just eager to share. Even, you know, sometimes in person classes, writers can be inhibited to share their own work, but everyone was really, really kind of, I think, eager for that opportunity, which was very cool to see. We did another program this summer using virtual reality to see what would be different, you know, kind of in that level of immersion and interaction. And I was going in, a skeptic was very impressed with what you could do with that. But because it's more complicated technology, it's less accessible, at least so far. So for how accessible Zoom is for most people, not all, but for many, at least via like a cell phone or something, it was pretty solid.
Great, thank you. The next question I wanted to ask was about the extent to which content was needed to be, or format was needed to be altered for a project to kind of fit a virtual format. And I'm wondering, at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, Kemi, and also Inlandia, Katie, how you kind of responded to those kind of issues.
Well, I presented first, so sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say I presented earlier, so I wanted to see if Katie, if you wanted to start first.
Oh, sure. Well, that's one challenge with the Zoom, is that you can't always see each other or follow those cues. But to the extent that with Inlandia, our programs are heavily reliant on partner venues, that the fact that all of our partner venues meant suddenly we had nowhere to do programs. And then, of course, then the large gathering prohibition hit, even the small gatherings. So we didn't, at first we didn't think we could modify everything to go virtual. And we started postponing and canceling. And then I learned about this magical thing called Zoom and figured that we can take, you know, author experiences, readings, open mics, even the workshops. It didn't have to be reformatted. It actually transferred pretty neatly to a virtual format, and in some ways is even more intimate than being in person and able to use the breakout room features. So that's, from my angle, it's actually worked out really well.
How about you, Kemi?
Yeah, I do want to echo Katie about the fact that it does open up, in some ways, a more direct dialogue, like the chat box function. We also use Zoom, and that's just been an incredible place where people are, you know, echoing statements that resonated with them. From the staff end, we could push extra, you know, links to articles that were referenced, or links to the presenters' own websites if they have those. So I think like it didn't necessarily, shifting to virtual format, it didn't like change any of the core components in terms of like what issue areas we wanted to focus on. It actually made our content more free in terms of it wasn't bound to a specific date strictly anymore. It was like, we have opportunities now with, you have to send the pre-event reminder email. So why not also send the link, like these are the presenters infos. So then that saves you a little bit of time, like giving them that homework. And then the follow-up, if you save the Zoom chat and you have that record, you could extract all of the URLs and have that as part of your follow-up email. Like, here are all the stuff. If you didn't save the chat on your end, this is what was shared. So it's really like freed up our thinking about how can we engage people, even though we can't do interactive hands-on things. We can still send them that information. Like, these are the ways that you can plug yourself in, and these are the ways you can get involved with the presenters, because for the California Humanities project specifically, like, we are trying to highlight local to Bay Area presenters. So a lot of them have organizations or projects that hopefully people in the Bay Area can actually directly impact and help. Yeah.
Wonderful, thanks. I wanted to follow up as well. Patrick, you had mentioned earlier talking about, you know, the kind of Zoom and the familiarity with Zoom and these kind of technologies. But obviously there are underserved audiences out there, and not everyone, we've been talking a lot about kind of digital stuff, but not everyone has access to the internet and computers and broadband and things like that. I'm wondering how you responded to this kind of equity issue that often emerges in this context.
I think it's probably one of the most important questions around all of this, and it's a really tough one to address. Especially I think because we were scrambling to make this happen this year. But there is actually in San Diego another nonprofit that their entire mission is getting free or low-cost computers into the hands of young people and adults who need them, as well as getting them, you know, Wi-Fi hotspots or, you know, other access to broadband. And so if we were to do this next year and had a little bit more lead time, I think that was something that I, looking back, wish we could have done is, you know, kind of partner up, do outreach, you know, through schools and through libraries the way we did this year, but with, you know, information in the outreach saying, you know, if you don't have a computer, if you don't have high-speed Wi-Fi, we have a partner who can get you that if you want to participate in this program. You know, I've got 2 kids who are doing school through Zoom right now, and in a community that, you know, a significant percentage of us don't have good, reliable internet connections. You know, and so you see kids at the Burger King, you see kids at sitting outside the library that's closed because they can at least still get on the Wi-Fi there. And so it's, for anything that you're doing online, it's always going to be a limiting factor. But that was one way, looking back or looking forward, that we might be able to mitigate it in the future.
Thank you. And we've just got about a minute or so left before we move to our audience question. So Katie, did you want to follow up with a response to that question?
About equity and access?
Equity, yeah, exactly.
To the extent we are trying to direct people to organizations, like Patrick mentioned, that can hook them up with a laptop or a hotspot. We also, just this past weekend, I applied for a grant to hopefully get some computers and hotspots to distribute amongst our workshop participants who don't have access. So we're making, we're taking all the steps that we can take from right now, and we'll continue to do so, because I don't think this is a problem that's going to go away very soon. If people can use the libraries when those open. I know one of our libraries locally, you can reserve the computer, so they're not open to the public, but for, say, homework or for the direct learning, they can make an appointment and go in and use the facilities. So things like that, trying to connect people in the community and keep everybody connected.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. And now we've got some questions coming in from the audience. So I invite the audience to turn on your cameras if you'd like to be seen, but remain muted. And we'll take, we have some questions coming in, and we'll take more questions through the chat. So just type your questions into Kirsten, and she'll pass them on to me. So, and don't forget to stay on. At the very end, Felicia is going to talk about upcoming opportunities with California Humanities for future grants. So our first question that came in, and this is for whoever I think wants to answer this question from the panelists. Moving forward in a post-COVID world, or COVID suppressed, knowing what the presenters have learned, both positive and negative, how do they plan to present programs in the future? Old school, all online, or a hybrid model of using both? Who would like to respond to that one?
I'll go real quick. I think that when I reflect on our K-12 programming, and when I'm thinking about equity, our field trips are free, and the kids can come here with their teachers, but transportation is often an issue. And the fact that we invested during this time period in creating virtual field trip opportunities we've done the hard lifting now, and these programs are now set. And I think this is really going to benefit a lot of those schools, those districts, and people that literally don't live within 100 miles of us. They now all can come on a field trip to our site.
So those were kind of positive, unexpected things that came out of this for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Did anyone else want to respond? Patrick, and Sam and Chris?
Yeah, you want to go first, Patrick?
Oh, no, please, you go right ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, as we were saying in the little presentation, like this was a huge success for us. I mean, we had 400 people come to the first show, and the most we've ever had in person is 150. You just can only get so many people in a room with the sound setup. And I mean, unfortunately, it seems like the pandemic will be on us for quite some time. So also this idea of being able to bring people together with the show, I think, we're going to pursue that. But yeah, and in another way, it was an opportunity in the sense that, like, I don't think people would have paid for audio before the pandemic, or wouldn't have been as readily to pay. But I think people really actually like the experience of being at home by themselves, but also connected to other people. So yeah, we feel pretty excited about it. I don't know, Chris, you want to add?
No, that was well put.
Oh, that's a rare compliment, folks.
Yeah.
How about you, Patrick?
Sure. Yeah. So just to echo a few things, with this program, we're really pleased with the result. We ran another program that, typically, our live events, depending, can be 50 to 250 people. But this other speaker series, we had 1,100 unique registrants across 6 programs. And again, people Skyping in or Zooming in from the Philippines and other parts of the world, because the science fiction and fantasy community especially is such an international community. So we're currently talking about, how we can do workshops on, say like Singapore time zone to make it more accessible to writers in East and Southeast and South Asia, in ways that we can kind of better serve the wider international community of imaginative writers. And I mentioned before, we also, are experimenting with a virtual reality-based program over the summer that was really exciting. And so we're now trying to scale it up to do a UC-wide iteration of it this year. And part of that and the associated, funding that goes with it would be to get headsets and put them in the hands of people who, traditionally wouldn't have access to this kind of technology, and then get them collaborating in virtual reality. So again, that's some of where we're kind of going, but we tend to work in sort of experimental, speculative modes anyways. And we also are doing some work because we miss doing things in person, but we can't get close to each other. So we're working with some museums in Balboa Park to see what we can do with augmented reality and create educational, interactive experiences that allow everyone to kind of keep some distance from each other in public spaces, but still kind of layering in the exciting additional aspects that you can get through a digital media.
Thank you so much. Let's get to another audience question here. So can any of the panelists share how they increased the number of their subscribers on their YouTube channel or Facebook after they started their virtual programs? Any successful examples to share? Who would like to take that one?
Our social media is still very humble, but I think it was a kind of a small milestone for us that our Instagram hit 1,000 or exceeded 1,000, maybe about a month into the shelter in place. And it's a small thing, but along with like doubling the e-newsletter, I think just simply having more activity has really benefited us. So like, even though we don't have a communications person, like we've tried to set up tools because we share this load among different people. So I will try to cover program related posts, and then development manager, she'll try to, push development related, like fundraising things. And we do have like a spreadsheet where we try to schedule out and be like, okay, let's make sure we're not stepping on each other's scheduled post days. So loosely, we try to just, with teamwork, make sure that we're producing something or also cross-promoting. A lot of our local partners are doing a lot of incredible work, so there's just plenty of content that we could help to reshare and just keep driving that activity and keep cross-promoting all the good work that's happening. So that's just been a really great way for us to expand our footprint and just be a little more visible in the traffic.
Wonderful. Virginia.
Yeah, but I was just going to share really quickly. One thing that we learned is that Facebook's algorithm, the way it works, is the more comments that you get, the more that Facebook will push you out to more audiences and more diverse audiences. So what we found is that when we do a live event, we post up a prompt. We'll say something like, we're going to start in 3 minutes. Can everybody please put your favorite outdoor spot? And then we get 150 people posting their favorite outdoor spot. And then Facebook then automatically pushes us out to a greater audience. That's just something to think about, is if you want to expand your footprint with Facebook, understand their algorithms.
Right, that's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question come in here from the audience. Can the panelists comment on what evaluation methods they used? Surveys, Zoom, or Eventbrite data? What measures and metrics work best? Who would like to take that?
I suppose. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would just say quickly, we used Eventbrite and it wasn't bad for metrics. There's some other clunky things about Eventbrite that are maddening, but and then seeing how many people who bought tickets actually showed up, which again, you know, we were happy that it was pretty high. Those are our two main sources.
Yeah.
Thanks. Katie.
Sure. We have used Eventbrite in the past, but you know, during the pandemic, we've almost exclusively used the registration function with Zoom. And I do recommend, if you're doing an event, to look into the webinar platform. It's a little bit more a month, but it's not that much more. And it does provide the data that you need to see who registered and versus who attended. You capture emails, and then you can also auto set reminders to, you know, remind people to come, or you can send a post-event survey to even, you know, an evaluation survey through that. So it automates a little bit of those kinds of evaluation tools.
Great.
Yeah, I would just echo Katie. I think Zoom webinars was a really handy tool. You know, for interactive classes, it doesn't work because the audience is not visible and can only interact via chat. But for more of a talk, a panel, a lecture, it's beautiful. And I will say, you know, from doing in-person events where you can effectively corner people and get them to take your survey versus just emailing them the survey, you get much fewer responses than you might. And so that's a little bit frustrating, but we do have all of these other ways to kind of assess engagement.
Great. Kemi.
And I just want to really quickly add that specific to the California Humanities event in April, the California Humanities staff was really great about producing like an online survey link. So we were able to get pretty good feedback through that method. And another thing specific to Zoom is just the live polling. I believe you can also pull reports on who answers that. So like, right, maybe in the first couple minutes when you're doing introductions anyways, we've noticed that people like to state where they're zooming in from in the chat already anyways. So we've done, you know, like creative writing workshops back in July where, you know, we're still introducing people, but we're like, we'll take a couple of minutes, tell us where you're at. And it's just like demographics, like that kind of information. We found that response has been really great when you have it like right when they're joining and their attention is like with you. So the live poll has been helpful.
That's wonderful. We got one more question to get to before we ask our audience some questions. So the last question, we've got about 4 minutes left. Since we can all use a little uplift these days, what have you been hearing from your audiences? Is there a meaningful comment or piece of feedback that really stayed with you?
I got one off the top of my head. Just from our shows, a bunch of people emailed us afterwards, and a thing that we got maybe 2 or 3 times that I wasn't expecting at the time was how much people, I mean, again, this was, in May and June, so maybe it's different now, but so many people were they like really longed for this feeling of to going to this thing, of going to a thing, like going to an event that happened and was over, and feeling like you were almost going out, and 3 or 4 people said they felt like they're going out for the night when they came to our event. And that was, I think that also, I wasn't expecting that, but that was a really meaningful sort of piece of feedback for us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One thing that that struck me is I saw this survey recently that despite everyone having every streaming service available, 39% of Americans report that they can't find good content. And I think that it's not so much content, which is kind of a weird way to describe sound art or interactions with scholars or anything that any of us are engaged with, but I think people are looking for connection and community. And I think as much as you can do that by a bunch of people on Zoom with their eyes closed listening, getting people in dialogue about important issues and topics creates a sense of community. And so, that was what we heard over and over and over again, is when we created that community, people were super grateful for the experience. So for just as one example, there was a young woman who was zooming in from Hong Kong who wrote this amazing story about kind of anonymous factory worker also dealing with a pandemic, but from the perspective of mainland China, and seeing, young people from Colombia and Missouri and, San Diego kind of discussing these ideas together and bonding over them was really, I think, really special. So just think about how you're creating community would be my takeaway.
Well, thank you so much. And now we're going to put our audience that's here to work and ask you some questions. So if you'd like to respond to one of the questions that's going to appear on the screen shortly, then could you please turn on your camera and put up your hand, and we call upon you to respond. So our first question to our audience is, what in-person socially distanced programs have you seen work well in your own experience? And again, if you'd like to respond, then please turn your camera on and put your hand up, and we'll call on you.
I see Karen raising her hand.
Karen, yes, please.
Hi. I attended an author event that was done by a foundation. I work at a library. So I think there were about 100 people. And it was really just very well done. Incorporated some video, incorporated some pre-recorded introductions and things like that. Open for questions at the end, and I think it was really successful. So everybody hung with it. So
sounds wonderful. Would anyone else like to respond? I realize there's so many people to look through. I may be missing you, so please be patient if you do want to respond, and maybe Kirsten can help me out here. Would anyone else like to respond? How about our panelists. Anyone from the panelists want to talk about another thing that you've seen that you maybe wasn't your own, but you thought was important? Well, we can move on to the next question here. So what in-person, sorry, we've already got that one, don't we? So I don't think we have any takers as far as I can see. Okay, so we'll move on to our second question, which is a kind of more speculative question. What events would you dream up? So what is something that you would like to see, at least in your imagination, if it were possible, that you have not yet seen as a program? Yes, sorry, Stan. You can turn your mic on. There we go. Thank you.
Okay. And can I also answer that first question real quickly?
Sure.
So I just finished a Zoom ESL program that I co-host with another librarian. And that one is really, really fun to do. And we've had people from China. We're here in Southern California. We've had people from China and other countries join in, like former students of the live program. So, and for a program I'd like to see kind of a tour of another country or another city from somewhere else, where people give virtual tours of where they are, and then maybe the participants can ask questions and say, hey, go in that store, do something like that.
It's a great idea, yeah.
I'd love to see.
Jackie. So I think Jackie's muted.
So, am I on? Hi.
You're on, yes.
I'm in the process of developing a couple of socially distanced programs. I'm with the museum in the San Fernando Valley, and we just had to move from our small 1,000-square-foot place to across the street to this place. It's a rancho that they have, and we have a smaller place, 950 inside, but we have a lot of outside space. So, and I put in a grant someplace just to finish this. But what it is a series of kiosks, and on the kiosks it has both a sculpture or it's called a walk of stories, and it's talking about oral histories of certain people and certain pieces of sculpture or art. And then you have that, and then on the kiosk you have not only some written things, but a notebook that has a running video of that's related to the oral history of the person who had created the sculpture. And it's going to be, we have the space to make it socially distant, and it will be outside.
That sounds awesome. That's in the San Fernando Valley?
Yeah, that's at the Museum of San Fernando Valley. Now, we literally just moved a week and a half ago, and we have to we're just restructuring. We had to take down our small museum across the street. The inside, we have to restructure the whole thing, and the outside is new for us, but we've defined what the exhibit is. I put in a couple of grants, some places. We'll see if I can get to do exactly what I want to do. And I think it'll be very successful, because I know there's a big thirst in the San Fernando Valley to be outside, to go do things. And it's a wonderful little, it's on the Rancho de la Cordillera, on a big, like 8-acre property, but we'll be one part of that property now and give it some significance. But that's one way. And a second thing I'm working on, and this is real money, and I don't know, but my friend many years ago was the co-inventor of the original hologram, and he's out of New York, and I've been talking to him and trying to come up, again, we're about history, arts, and culture, and trying to create a holographic video of, about 3 or 4 minutes that would be in the middle where people would be all around. You walk around outside, socially distanced or inside, to see it without goggles. And the big thing is right now everything has goggles. And so he's been working on something. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I did see a little prototype of it. And if that happens, I think that we'll be able to, if I can help get some money for him to finish that, we'll be able to, what's the word I'm thinking of, showcase it in the San Fernando Valley in the future.
That sounds really, really wonderful. Great projects. Good imagination there. And we've got time maybe for one more person if they'd like to respond to either one of these questions. Let's see. I think Cheryl and James. So there's two of you. So if you could just take maybe a minute or so each. James, you're on first, and then Cheryl.
Okay, I'm a city planner, and I do a lot of, I think this whole Zoom has really redefined my practice as a community engagement person, because usually city planning is based on place or issue or demographic, but now you can create these kind of spaces of spatial inquiry that aren't tied to a demographic or a place. It's just designed, it's just space, imagination space, and now we can use Zoom as a tool to kind of rediscover who we are, who we value. So it's been interesting doing workshops all over the country with all these random people, just on breaking down all the barriers. It's been great. Just wanted to share that. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Cheryl.
Hi, we've already done, thanks to Cal Humanities, partially funding the Art of Resilience, which was a retreat on Zoom for veterans and civilians and family members of veterans, that we used writing, we used ritual, we used lecture, and we are also going to do a women's retreat led by Native American women. It will be open to everyone. It's inclusive as long as you're a woman. And we're going to, so we're going to have another, I don't use this word with veterans, but in terms of this group, a healing retreat where we will do the talking circle and the writing and the healing on Zoom and create a safe space. But the thing I'm dreaming up right now as I'm listening, because I loved what I heard, is that I would like to do something that we did live many years ago called The Art of War, which is to get the writings of veterans and match them up with civilian painters and artists and have the art behind the veterans as we do a spoken word event. So anyway, I've done a spoken word event recently online to raise money for Miltree, my organization, and it went okay. It's got to go better. The technical was a little iffy. Thank you.
That sounds wonderful, Cheryl. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for joining in. We've reached the end of our discussion period, but don't go away. We still have our Felicia coming up. So we do hope that the program has inspired you to think about new directions with your work. And it sounds like, at least for Cheryl, it has, so that's good. And we're going to end with a few words from about grant opportunities at California Humanities from Felicia Kelly, our wonderful project and evaluation director. So Felicia, over to you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Bidhan, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We know that a lot of you, this is clear, are interested in doing virtual programming, and we hope that what's been shared today will be helpful to you. We know that many of you too are interested in securing funding for your programs, so we want to just take a few minutes here to share some information about California Humanities' upcoming grant opportunities. So what we're looking at right now is a document called Grants at a Glance. This is on our website under the Funding Resources tab, so you can go there at any point and look for it. This information is maintained currently on a regular basis, so you can always come here and find out what's coming up in terms of deadlines. So you can see here, for example, that the next deadline for our quick grant program public programming grants will be coming up on October 19th, and the deadline for the California Documentary Project Research and Development and Production grants is coming up on November 2nd. This is just, the basic information. You can go to the program webpage. Kirsten, can we share that, that link? Yeah, if you click through the images at the top of the funding opportunities page, you'll see, you'll get to the program webpage, and this has all the information that you need, including guidelines, links to register for webinars. You can download sample proposals. You can contact the program officer who's in charge of that particular grant line through the link on the website. So we do encourage you to bookmark that and to check out those resources whenever you want. Okay, so now I just want to close out our wonderful session this afternoon by thanking our grantee panelists, Kami, Katie, Chris, Patrick, Sam, and Virginia. We're just so grateful to all of you for so generously sharing your insights and being so open about your experiences. This is just wonderful, actionable information, I think, for everybody. So, thank you for putting all the time and care that you took with your presentations and being willing to, help build this community of humanities practitioners around the state and possibly even beyond. We really appreciate that. And thanks, of course, to our wonderful moderator, Dr. Bidhan Chandra Roy of Cal State Los Angeles, for so ably facilitating this conversation and for bringing his insights, his own insights as a public humanities programmer, to bear on shaping these questions and crafting this event. Then finally, I want to thank our staff. Very special thanks to our producer for this event, Program Assistant Kirsten Vega, who was really behind the scenes all the way, organizing and putting all of this together, as well as the other folks on our production team today, John Nguyen Yap and Renee Perry, for doing all the behind the scenes tech work. Thank you. Thank you to our outreach team, Cherie Hill and Stephen Loskatoff, for getting the word out. And then finally, thanks to our program staff, our entire program staff, and to our president and CEO, Julie Fry, for contributing to shaping this event and thinking through the format for today. So we hope that you will join us, come back and join us for future online events. Our next program will be on October 13th. It's called City Seat, Translating Cities and Cultures. Very interesting program. I think Kirsten's going to show you the flyer for that. There's a link in the chat box to RSVP if you'd like to do that. There's also information on our website, of course. Please do be sure, if you aren't already a subscriber, to sign up for California Humanities monthly e-newsletter so that we can keep in touch with you with announcements and notifications. Please be sure to give us your feedback on this program today by responding to the survey link that you'll be sent shortly thereafter. And we will also post a recording of this program on our website as soon as that's available. So again, thanks so much, everybody. This was a great program. Please take care of yourselves and stay safe. Thank you.